The shop didn't just tell time, it seemed to hold its breath. In the cobblestone heart of a village that the modern world had mostly forgotten, there sat a shop known as the Gilded Gear. It was narrow, dusty, and smelled perpetually of cedarwood and oil. But the villagers didn't go there just to repair their watches, they went there to fix their lives. And this is the story of the man who ran it, and the ambitious young apprentice who thought he knew everything until he learned one secret that no machine can teach. Elias was 22, sharp-eyed and impatient. He had hands steady enough to thread a needle in a hurricane and a mind that worked like a calculator. He had traveled 3 days to reach the Gilded Gear because he had heard the rumors. They said the old man, Silas, was a magician. They said he could fix gears that had been shattered for decades. Elias wanted that skill. He wanted to be the greatest clockmaker in the world. When he entered the shop, the bell above the door chimed softly, a lonely sound in the quiet room. The walls were lined with hundreds of cuckoo clocks. Grandfathers, pocket watches, and mantelpieces, all ticking in a chaotic, rhythmic heartbeat. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Behind the counter sat Silas. He was a man down by time, with white hair that looked like spun wool and spectacles so thick they magnified his eyes into kindly observant pools. He didn't look up from the brass mechanism he was polishing. "I am here to learn the masterwork," Elias announced, dropping his heavy bag on the floor. "I have studied the theory. I can dismantle a chronograph in under 4 minutes. I want to know how you make the broken things whole again." Silas paused. He looked up, his gaze traveling over Elias's expensive tools and his arrogant posture. "You want to fix clocks, boy?" he asked. "I want to fix the unfixable," Elias corrected. Silas smiled, a sad, knowing curve of his lips. "Then grab a broom. The floor is dirty." For the first month, Elias didn't touch a single gear. He swept. He polished the glass faces of the grandfather clocks until his arms ached. He made tea. He watched the snow pile up against the window pane, his frustration growing like a coiled spring wound too tight. He felt he was wasting his brilliance. He was a thoroughbred horse, forced to pull a plow. "Why are you wasting my time?" Elias snapped. One evening, as the winter sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the workshop, "I am ready to work." Silas looked up from his workbench. "You are ready to work with your hands, Elias, but your eyes are still blind." The next day, Silas finally allowed Elias to sit at the counter. "Don't fix anything," Silas instructed. "Just watch and listen." The first customer was Mrs. Higgins. She was a frail woman, her hands shaking as she placed a cheap, rusted alarm clock on the velvet pad. It was a piece of junk, honestly. Elias knew he could replace the movement for $5, or tell her to throw it away. "It stopped ticking last Tuesday," Mrs. Higgins whispered, clutching her purse. "It was my late husband's. He used to wind it every night before bed. Now that it's silent, the house feels so empty." Elias reached for his screwdriver, eager to show off. "The mainspring is likely snapped, madam." "I can have it open in," but Silas put a hand on Elias's arm, stopping him. The old man looked at Mrs. Higgins, really looked at her. He saw the red rims of her eyes and the fraying of her coat. "The silence is the hardest part, isn't it, Martha?" Silas asked softly. She nodded, tears welling up. "It feels like he's truly gone now." Silas didn't open the clock immediately. Instead, he made her a cup of tea. He sat with her for 20 minutes, letting her talk about her husband, about how he loved the garden, and how he snored. Elias watched, tapping his foot impatiently. "Time is money," he thought. "This is inefficient. Finally, Silas picked up the clock. He didn't replace the mechanism. He simply cleaned the dust from the escapement, oiled the pivot, and wound it gently. The tic-tac returned, strong and steady. "It wasn't broken, Martha," Silas said, handing it back with both hands. "It was just tired. It needed a moment too. Rest, just like you." Mrs. Higgins left the shop looking 10 years younger, clutching the cheap clock like a diamond. She tried to pay, but Silas waved her away. "Why didn't you charge her?" Elias demanded when the door closed. "And why did you listen to all that rambling? You fixed the clock in 2 minutes. The rest was a waste." Silas sighed, wiping his hands on a rag. "You looked at the clock and saw a broken spring, Elias. I looked at the woman and saw a broken heart. If I had just fixed the machine and sent her away, she would have gone home to a cold house. Now, she goes home with a memory of kindness. We don't just fix gears here, boy. We fix time." Weeks turned into months. Elias watched dozens of people come in. A businessman rushing and angry, whose watch was running fast because he was living too fast. Silas slowed him down with a calm conversation before adjusting the regulator. A young boy with a crushed pocket watch who was terrified of his father's anger. Silas fixed it for free and gave the boy a chocolate, promising it would be there. Secret. Elias began to understand the rhythm of the shop, but his pride still remained. He believed he could do what Silas did, but faster. Better. Then came the day of the blizzard. The wind howled against the glass, rattling the frames. The door burst open, and a man stumbled in, wrapped in heavy furs. It was the mayor, a man known for his temper and his wealth. In his hands, he held a golden carriage clock, an intricate masterpiece of engineering. It stopped. The mayor bellowed. "This clock has been in my family for 4 generations. It has never lost a second. Tonight is the centennial ball. It must chime at midnight, or I will be the laughingstock of the county. Fix it." Silas was trembling that day. His arthritis was flaring up in the cold. He looked at the clock, then at his shaking hands. He turned to Elias. "I cannot do this today," Silas said quietly. "My hands will not obey. Elias, it is your turn." Elias's heart soared. This was it. The masterwork. He took the golden clock to the workbench. He put on his loop. He opened the back case. The mechanism was dazzlingly complex et tourbillon, movement with hundreds of microscopic parts. Elias went to work. He worked for an hour, then 2. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the freezing cold. He found a bent cog. He straightened it. He found a dry bearing. He oiled it. He aligned the gears with mathematical precision. "It is done," Elias declared triumphantly. He wound the key. Nothing. The clock remained silent. He dismantled it again. He checked every calculation. He forced the gears, prodding them with his tweezers. "Move," he commanded. "Move, you stupid machine." The mayor was pacing. "Time is running out, boy." Elias's hands began to shake. He was failing. He possessed all the skill, all the knowledge, all the tools. Why wouldn't it work? Panic set in. He was going to ruin the shop's reputation. He was going to fail himself. I can't," Elias whispered, stepping back, defeated. "It's mechanically perfect. It should work. I don't understand." Silas stood up slowly from his stool in the corner. He walked over to the bench. He didn't pick up a tool. He placed his warm, gnarled hand on Elias's shoulder. Then he placed his other hand on the cold gold of the clock. You are fighting it, Silas said softly. You are trying to force your will upon it. You are angry because it defies you. The metal can feel your tension, Elias. Elias snapped back. It's metal. It doesn't feel anything, Silas whispered. Everything feels... Silas took a deep breath. He ignored the mayor's pacing. He ignored the storm outside. He picked up the clock, not as a problem to be solved, but as a treasure to be held. He hummed a low, gentle tune. He turned the key, not with force, but with an invitation. He adjusted a tiny lever, not with the sharpness of a tool, but with the caress of a thumb. Click whir. Tick dot 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 tock dot dot tick dot dot dot. The sound was music. The mayor gasped. Elias stood frozen. Silas hadn't done anything technical that Elias hadn't already done. But Silas had done it with love. He had done it with patience. That night, after the mayor had left, overjoyed and paying double, the shop was quiet. Ilya sat on the floor, his head in his hands. You are a magician, he said. I can never learn that. Silas made 2 cups of cocoa and sat beside him. Okay, it isn't magic, Elias. It is the only truth that matters. You viewed that clock as an enemy to be defeated, Silas continued. You wanted to fix it to prove how great you are? That is why you failed. When you help others, whether it is a machine or a person, if you do it to feed your own ego, you will always break things. Silas looked at the wall of ticking clocks. Cangius Elias is not an action. It is an intention. When Mrs. Higgins came in, I didn't fix her clock for money. I fixed it to give her peace. When the mayor came in, you wanted glory. I just wanted to help him keep his dignity. The gears turn easier when they are handled with care. People are the same. Elias looked at his hands. For the first time, he didn't see tools of ambition. He saw instruments of service. To be a master, Silas said, finishing his cocoa, you must stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be useful. You must care more about the person holding the watch than the watch itself. Years went by. The seasons turned from the white of winter to the gold of harvest, over and over again. One morning, the bell above the door didn't chime. The shop was silent. Silas had passed away in his sleep, a peaceful smile on his face, his own internal clock finally coming to a rest after a lifetime of keeping time for others. The village mourned. They wondered if the gilded gear would close. They wondered what would happen to the magic. A week after the funeral, a young woman entered the shop. She was crying, holding a shattered music box. I dropped it, she sobbed. It was my mother's. Every shop in the city said, it's too broken to fix. Elias, now older, with the first touches of grey at his temples, stood up from the workbench. He looked at the complex mess of gears. He knew, technically, it was a nightmare. He knew it would take hours of unpaid labor. He knew the odds were against him. But then, he looked at the woman's tear-stained face. He felt the echo of Silas. In the room, Elias walked around the counter. He didn't reach for the toolbox. He reached for the kettle. First, Elias said gently, his voice warm and steady, let's have some tea. Then, you can tell me about your mother. The woman stopped crying, surprised by the sudden warmth in the cold day. You think you can fix it? Elias smiled, the same sad, knowing smile Silas used to wear. We will try, Elias said. But the music box can wait a moment. You look like you need to rest. As he poured the tea, the clocks on the wall seemed to tick a little louder. A chorus of approval. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Elias had learned the secret. The mechanism of the world is ground by the gears of logic and physics, but it is oiled by the kindness of the human spirit. We are all walking around with broken parts. We are all carrying hidden griefs, rusted hopes, and springs wound too tight by the stress of living. When we meet someone who is angry, or slow, or broken, we have a choice. We can be like the young Elias, trying to force them to work, judging them for their faults. Or we can be like Silas. We can offer a moment of patience. We can listen. We can handle them with care. Because in the end, people will forget how fast you did the job. They will forget how smart you sounded. But they will never, ever forget how you made them feel. Be the clockmaker of your own world. Take the time to listen. Fix the heart. And the rest will follow. Asterisk, if you like the video, please subscribe and like the video. See you in the next story.